My name is Whitney. I'm 27, and the night my parents ordered me to pack my bags in front of my whole family, I swear the air left my lungs. It started like any other Sunday dinner in Dallas. The long oak table was set with polished silverware, bowls of roasted potatoes steaming in the center, and a glossy roast chicken glistening under the chandelier. My mom always insisted on family dinners, even when we argued, especially when we argued. She believed food could fix anything. But that night, it wasn't food she served. It was betrayal. The sound of knives scraping against plates filled the silence. My father cleared his throat once, twice, like he was working up the courage to make a toast. My sister twirled her wine glass in slow circles, her lips pulled into the kind of smirk you can feel even when you're not looking. I tried to keep my head down, cutting into my chicken, but my fork trembled. I'd been living at home to save money, pulling double shifts at the cafe just off Greenville Avenue, and handing my mom $200 cash every Friday without fail. Rent, groceries, electricity. I did my part. So why did I already sense a storm coming? My dad finally spoke, his voice low but steady. "Whitney, you have 48 hours to get your stuff out?" The clatter of a spoon against a plate echoed. I froze, staring at him. What? He didn't even meet my eyes. He just pressed his napkin into a perfect square and laid it on the table. "Your brother's moving back home. We need the space. It's time you moved on. As if I was some guest overstaying my welcome. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears. My mom reached for her wine glass, her bracelets jingling, her expression cold. "It's for the best, Whitney," she said softly, though there was no softness in her eyes. "You're almost 30. You need to stand on your own. Almost 30. The words stung more than the eviction itself. My brother, 23, had blown through 2 jobs in the last year, wrecked his Honda Civic, and still somehow came out their golden child. And me? I was disposable. The room seemed to tilt. My sister leaned back in her chair, lips curling into a cruel half-smile. "Guess it's survival of the fittest," she muttered under her breath. Her words sliced through me sharper than any knife on the table. I wanted to scream, to throw my glass, to demand why, but the weight of their stares pressed me down like chains. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "You're really kicking me out? Just like that?" My father's jaw tightened. "We're not kicking you out. We're giving you a chance to grow. The irony burned. I'd been the one paying bills, covering groceries when Mom's card declined at Target, picking up prescriptions when Dad forgot. Grow? I'd already been carrying their weight. The silence stretched, broken only by the hum of the old fridge in the kitchen. I watched the steam rise from the mashed potatoes, untouched, as if the whole meal was a performance staged to make their words hurt more. 2 days? I whispered. "You're giving me 2 days to leave the only home I've ever known?" No one answered. My mother sipped her wine. My father cut another slice of chicken, chewing carefully, as if my whole life hadn't just shattered between mouthfuls of food. I looked around the table, at the glossy plates, the candle flickering in its crystal holder, the cheap family portrait hanging crooked on the wall. Suddenly it all felt like a set, and I was the only one who hadn't been given the script. My fork slipped from my hand, clinking against the plate. Everyone flinched at the sound, but no one spoke. The air was thick, suffocating. I thought of the boxes in my closet, the faded Polaroids pinned to my corkboard, the stack of pay stubs proving every dollar I'd scraped together. Where was I supposed to go? What would happen if I refused? Would they call the cops on me? Their own daughter? The thought made my stomach turn. I searched my mom's face for some trace of regret, some flicker of motherly warmth, but found only indifference. And in that moment, something inside me cracked. Have you ever felt your own family erase you in real time? As if the chair beneath you could vanish and no one would notice? That's what it felt like. I wanted to ask why my brother mattered more. Why I was always the backup plan until they didn't need me at all. But the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I sat there silent, as their decision echoed louder than anything I could say. The dinner continued around me, knives slicing, glasses clinking, shallow laughter bouncing off walls that had once felt like home. But for me, time had stopped. I didn't know it then. But this was the last dinner I'd ever attend in that house as their daughter. Have you ever realized? In a single instant, That your family never saw you as one of them? That thought hit me harder than my father's ultimatum the next morning. I woke up in my childhood room, sunlight cutting across the posters I never took down, the smell of last night's roast chicken still lingering faintly in the air. I sat there staring at the ceiling fan spinning above me, each blade whispering the truth I didn't want to face. My parents weren't asking me to leave because they had no space. They were asking me to leave because in their eyes, I didn't belong. I thought about my younger brother, Ethan, 23, reckless, spoiled, the one who always got a second chance, or a third or a 10th. He crashed his car into a light pole last spring, and Dad laughed it off as boys being boys. Meanwhile, when I once came home late from my barista job at the cafe on Greenville, Mom scolded me for being irresponsible, while I was out earning tips to pay for groceries she herself couldn't afford. Isn't it strange how some people can set their house on fire and still be called golden, while others, like me, hold buckets of water and get blamed for the smoke? I remembered handing my mom cash every Friday, $200 in folded 20s, sometimes more if I worked overtime. I never once asked her what she did with it. I just wanted to help. I even covered the electric bill last winter, $268. I had the receipt still crumpled in my drawer. Meanwhile, Ethan spent his paycheck on bottle service at clubs downtown, posting pictures with neon lights and strangers whose names he didn't know, and still, they chose him. That memory bled into another, me, 17, sneaking into Dad's office to borrow a pen before my SAT test. I opened the top drawer and found another drawer inside, locked with a brass keyhole. It was the only thing in the house that required a key. I remember touching the cool metal, wondering what secrets it held. Dad caught me before I could linger. His hand slammed the drawer shut so hard the desk rattled. "Stay out of there," he growled. The anger in his voice wasn't normal. It was protective, fearful. I never forgot it. Last night's eviction replayed in my head, and for the first time I wondered, what's behind that drawer? And why did he need Ethan here so badly? I pulled my blanket tighter, even though the Texas heat pressed heavy against the windows. My chest felt hollow. Around noon, I dragged myself out of bed and into the kitchen. Mom was at the counter, folding laundry. The rhythmic slap of shirts against the granite echoed in the silence. She didn't look at me when she spoke. "You should start packing today. 48 hours isn't long." I clenched my jaw. I paid rent. I've paid every month for 2 years. Why am I the one leaving? She didn't stop folding. A sock, a shirt, another shirt. "It's not about that, Whitney. Your brother needs a chance. He's had a rough time." A rough time? I almost laughed. Rough time? He lost his job for skipping shifts. He wrecked his car because he was drunk. That's not a rough time, Mom. That's him being careless. She finally looked at me, her eyes sharp. "You've always been so judgmental. Maybe that's why you struggle to fit in." Her words stung worse than if she had slapped me. Judgmental. That's what she called me after I kept this family afloat? I wanted to shout, to list every sacrifice I'd made, every Friday night I skipped, every dollar I stretched just so this house could stay standing. But the words collapsed in my throat. Because the truth was already clear. It didn't matter what I said. They had already chosen their side. I left the kitchen without another word, the floor creaking under my bare feet. Back in my room, I sat at my desk, staring at the corkboard above it. Tacked there were grocery lists, coffee shop schedules, old Polaroids of me and Ethan as kids. In one, he was 6 and I was 10, both of us holding popsicles that dripped down our arms. He looked so small then, so innocent. How did it all turn into this? My eyes drifted to the pay stub stacked beside my laptop. Hours worked, 43.25. Net pay, 427.61. Proof that I wasn't lazy. Proof that I pulled my weight. And yet none of it mattered. That night, as I lay in bed, I tried to count the things I'd lose if I left. The familiar creak of the stairs, the worn couch with a spring poking out, even the ugly floral wallpaper in the hallway. But what hurt most wasn't losing the house. It was realizing I'd already lost the people in it. I couldn't sleep, not from fear of losing a roof, but from the bitter truth that I'd already lost my family years ago. The eviction wasn't just words. The next morning, an envelope proved it was real. I found it lying on the hallway table, right beside the basket where my mom tossed unopened mail. A plain white envelope with my name scrawled across it in my father's sharp handwriting. The kind of handwriting that always felt like a command. My stomach dropped before I even touched it. I tore it open, my fingers clumsy, my throat dry. Inside was a printed notice. Not some casual reminder or half-hearted threat, but an actual typed letter. Effective within 48 hours. At the bottom, in black ink, was my father's signature. His pen had pressed so hard into the paper that I could feel the grooves when I traced them with my fingertip. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The words blurred. All I could hear was the hum of the refrigerator and the distant tick of the living room clock, like it was counting down the hours I had left in the only home I'd ever known. I wanted to storm into their bedroom, to shove the paper in his face and demand an explanation, but instead I found myself drifting into the kitchen, the letter shaking in my hand. Mom was standing at the counter peeling apples, her knife sliding against the skin with practiced rhythm. The sweet, crisp smell filled the room, but it only made me nauseous. "Mom!" My voice cracked. "What is this?" She didn't even glance up. "It's what we discussed. 48 hours. I held up the paper. "This is official. You signed off on this?" Finally, she looked at me, her expression flat, almost bored. "Your father handled the details. It's not personal, Whitney. The house is being handed down. It's time." "Handed down?" My laugh came out sharp, bitter. "To Ethan? He's the one who needs a babysitter just to keep a job for more than 3 months. I've been paying rent here. I've been covering bills. And you're giving the house to him?" Her knife paused mid-slice. She set the apple down carefully, as if to keep control of the scene. "He's your brother. He needs stability. You're strong enough to make it on your own. Strong enough." That was her excuse. My sacrifice had made me strong, so now they could abandon me guilt-free. I felt something in my chest twist, then snap. "You don't get it, do you? This isn't strength. This is betrayal." Her eyes hardened, lips pressed tight. "Don't be dramatic. You'll thank us one day." Thank them? For throwing me out like garbage while handing Ethan the keys to everything I'd worked to keep afloat? The rage in me boiled, but beneath it was something strange. Relief. At least now I knew. All the subtle hints, the favoritism, the cold shoulders, they weren't my imagination. The letter in my hand was proof. They had chosen him over me. Not just once, but permanently. And in that twisted clarity, something shifted inside me. If I wasn't their daughter anymore, then I didn't owe them anything. I folded the letter slowly, carefully, as if it were some sacred text. I slid it into the front pocket of my backpack, zipping it shut. If they wanted me gone, fine. But I wasn't going to leave empty-handed. Not emotionally, not mentally. I'd carry this proof with me like armor. The rest of the morning passed in silence. I moved through the house like a ghost, my bare feet brushing across the worn carpet, my fingertips trailing over the banister I used to slide down as a kid. Each object looked smaller, colder, as if it already belonged to someone else. In my room, I yanked an old duffel bag from the closet. The zipper squealed open, loud in the quiet house. I started with clothes, stuffing them in without folding. Then my Polaroids, my journals, the pay stubs I'd saved in a shoebox. Each item felt like a piece of evidence, proof that I had existed here, even if they wanted to erase me. I paused at my desk, fingers brushing against a chipped mug I'd used every morning for coffee before my shifts. The words "world's best daughter" were faded, cracked from years of dishwashing. It had been a Christmas gift from my mom when I was 15. I almost laughed at the irony. By the time the sun dipped low, painting the blinds in stripes of orange, the bag was full. My whole life reduced to a few shirts, some notebooks, and a mug that mocked me. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the packed duffel bag, my heart heavy but strangely steady. For the first time, I wasn't asking why me. I was telling myself never again. I leaned closer, whispering the words into the empty room like a vow. If they don't want me here, fine. But they'll regret it. Day 1 of my 48-hour countdown started with humiliation. The morning light through my blinds had been too bright, almost cruel, when I dragged myself out of bed. By the time I walked into the cafe, the smell of burnt espresso beans and cinnamon muffins clung to me like a reminder that this was my world now, the world I had to survive in without the safety of home. I tied on my apron, The faded black strap rough against my neck. The hiss of the milk steamer echoed across the counter, louder than my own heartbeat. Usually, the noise faded into background comfort, the sound of routine. But that day, it cut through me like static. I kept my head down, punching in orders, frothing cappuccinos, wiping down counters. I thought I could blend into the hum of chatter, pretend the night before hadn't happened, pretend the eviction letter wasn't folded in the front pocket of my backpack, a constant weight pressing against me. But pretending never lasts long. My phone buzzed in my apron pocket. I shouldn't have answered, not during the rush. But something in me still hoped my parents had changed their minds, that maybe it was all a mistake. I slipped into the corner by the supply shelf, pressing the phone to my ear. "Mom?" My voice was barely a whisper. Her tone was clipped, businesslike. "We've given you notice, Whitney. Don't call during work hours. It's unprofessional. Unprofessional." The word stabbed deeper than I expected. Before I could respond, the call clicked dead. Silence roared in my ear. And that's when I realized I wasn't alone. Behind me, one of my co-workers, Jenna, 19, with pink streaks in her hair and a habit of smirking at everyone, had paused mid-step with a tray of mugs in her hands. She raised an eyebrow. "Did I just hear that right? Your parents are kicking you out?" Heat surged up my neck. It's not what it sounds like, but the way her grin spread told me it didn't matter. She'd already made it a story. Within an hour, whispers spread faster than spilled coffee. I could feel it in the way customers looked at me, some with pity, others with barely hidden amusement. A man in a gray suit leaned toward his friend at the corner table, murmuring just loud enough, "Imagine being 23 and homeless. Pathetic." His friend chuckled. Shaking his head, I clenched my jaw so tight it ached. I wanted to scream at them, to throw their lattes in their faces, but instead, I pulled the steaming pitcher closer, pouring the milk too fast. Foam overflowed, dripping down the sides. The hiss of the machine was deafening now, like it was mocking me. "Hey, Whitney," Jenna called from across the bar, her voice sugary sweet. "Got a spare room at your place?" "Oh, wait." A couple of customers laughed under their breath. The sound carved into me, sharper than any insult. I bit down hard, forcing the words out. "Do your job, Jenna." She raised her hands, feigning innocence. "Just making conversation." But I saw the smirk return, curling her lips like victory. Every second of that shift dragged, each order a reminder that my life had been reduced to gossip fodder. My world, my pain, was now something for others to sip their coffee over. And yet, somewhere in the humiliation, clarity struck again. If even strangers in a cafe could laugh at my downfall, then I had to become someone they could never laugh at again. Someone untouchable, but I wasn't there yet. Not even close. By late afternoon, my hands were trembling from exhaustion and rage. I fumbled with the cash register, dropping coins that clattered across the counter. A little boy picking up a muffin with his mom pointed and giggled. "Mom, she's clumsy." The mother hushed him gently, but her pitying glance stung worse than the words. I wanted to vanish, to evaporate into the steam rising off the espresso machine. Instead, I ripped the strap of my apron loose, the fabric tugging hard at my neck before falling free. My hands shook as I yanked it off, the knot stubborn until it gave way with a snap. I tossed it on the counter, my breath uneven, chest heaving. The cafe noise blurred into a low hum like I was underwater. Every laugh, every whisper, every sideways glance dissolved into a single vow forming in my mind. I promised myself, right then, right there, that this would be the last time anyone reduced me to a joke. I swiped my apron off, my hands shaking, and promised myself I'd never let them laugh at me again. Sometimes betrayal doesn't just knock at the door. It walks in smiling. He showed up at noon like he owned the place. Ethan stood on the porch with that familiar grin, wearing the ripped denim jacket he loved, and carrying a backpack that looked expensive enough to be borrowed. He hugged Mom and Dad theatrically, then turned to me, eyes sliding over my packed duffel like I was an inconvenience. The house smelled of lemon cleaner and the stale comfort of routine. My eviction letter was still warm in my bag. My fingers curled around the strap when I saw him. He offered to help, with a smile that meant anything but help. "Oh, need help?" he said. "I'll take a few boxes." His tone was syrupy, designed to belittle. "You could start by not acting like this is your place," I said. He laughed. "Relax, Whit. Mom and Dad told me the deed's going into my name. Figured I'd move in early." The words hit like a slap. Dad watched from his chair, calm as if this were a play. "We think it's best. Ethan needs stability." Ethan leaned on the banister, arms crossed. "You're so dramatic." "You'll be fine. Get your own place. Find a roommate." "Everyone does that." His laugh was casual cruelty. He knew what to hit. My money worries, my 12-hour cafe shifts, the net pay on my stub, $427.61. He'd watched me count change at the register and now used it like ammunition. Mom folded a dish towel until the edges matched. "He's your brother. He needs a chance. You're strong enough. Strong enough." My sacrifices had become their justification. "You gave him everything," I said quietly. "Credit, forgiveness, excuses? What did I get?" "A deadline." Dad's eyes skimmed me like a judge. "We're trying to be fair." Fair. The word felt empty in the room. Fair didn't mean handing one child a house while pushing the other out. Fair didn't explain the locked drawer in Dad's office or the late-night calls I never heard. Ethan stepped closer, citrus from his water bottle brushing the air. "Honestly, Whit, thank us. Free room for 2 days while you figure stuff out. I heard you only make like $400 a week." "Tough life," he smirked. The jab hit my gut. He'd rounded down my pay, turned my hard work into a joke. Even the clock seemed to mock my humiliation with loud ticks. I wanted to list every bill I'd covered. The $268 electric bill last winter. Gas money when Dad's truck died. But words knotted in my throat. Speaking felt useless. They'd made their choice. Instead, I watched them rearrange my life like furniture. Ethan prowled my room as if he'd lived there forever, flipping drawers, smirking at old t-shirts and posters. He picked up a Polaroid of us at the lake and sneered at our younger faces. "Wow. Didn't know you had style, Whit," he said, tossing the photo back. He laughed at my chipped mug that read, "World's Best Daughter." A cold sound escaped me. "Keep it," I said. "You'll need something to remember who lived here." He flicked the mug onto the desk. "Don't be dramatic." I ran my thumb over the eviction notice, tasting a fierce promise forming behind my clenched teeth quietly. As he left the room, he paused at the doorway, the light catching his smirk. "See you around, Whit." His footsteps padded down the hall, confident and rehearsed. The door clicked behind him. My hands trembled. I sank onto the bed, the mattress spring sighing, head in my palms. The house's noise. Ticking clock, distant TV, pressed in like judgment. Anger simmered under the skin. Humiliation stung, but beneath it was a strange clarity. If they could hand me a deadline with a smile, they'd already decided I was gone. Fine. If I was erased, I would not vanish quietly. I pictured the locked drawer again, the brass keyhole Dad slammed shut when I was 17. I pictured the deed being signed, my name absent. Whatever secrets they kept, whatever plans they had, I would not be silent. I slid my fingers into the zipper of my duffel, feeling the worn fabric beneath my palm. The room felt small, but my thoughts were big and hot with something like resolve. When Ethan's footsteps faded, I clenched my fists and thought, if they wanted me gone, they should have finished me off, because I was about to rise. Hope sometimes hides in the places you least expect, like a stranger's kind word. That night, I carried my duffel bag through the rain-slick streets of Dallas, water dripping off the strap and soaking into my shoulder. My shoes squished with every step. I didn't know where I was really going, just away. Away from the house that no longer felt like mine. Away from the smirk on my brother's face. Away from my parents' silence. I ended up knocking on the peeling blue door of my friend Marisol's apartment. She opened it in an oversized t-shirt, her curly hair piled in a messy bun, and the smell of instant ramen and sandalwood incense drifted out. Her studio wasn't much bigger than a dorm room, a futon, a cracked desk, dishes stacked in the sink, but to me, it felt like rescue. "You look like hell," she said. In pulling me inside, I feel worse. My laugh was weak, but it was the truth. She gave me a towel, a pair of dry socks, and the tiniest corner of her futon. We sat cross-legged on the floor, steam from the ramen fogging her chipped glasses. I hadn't eaten since that awful dinner, and even those cheap noodles tasted like heaven. So, what happened? She asked, her eyes soft but sharp. My parents, I said, twisting the towel in my lap. They gave me 2 days to move out. And the house, they're signing it over to Ethan. She froze with the chopsticks halfway to her mouth. Are you kidding me? After everything you've done for them? I shook my head. Not kidding. It's official. I saw the letter. Signed by my dad himself, Marisol cursed under her breath. The hum of the mini fridge filled the silence between us. I'd never realized how loud silence could feel in a room so small. Finally, she leaned forward. Whit, maybe this isn't a curse. Maybe it's a chance. You've been chained to them forever. You sacrificed your own dreams for their approval. Maybe now you can finally live for yourself. Her words were like striking a match in a dark room, because she was right. I had given up so much, nights out with friends, sleep, even the graphic design work I loved, just to keep food in that house or pay bills that weren't mine. I worked double shifts at the cafe while my siblings lounged on the couch. I said no to opportunities because family came first. But what if family never saw me at all? I stared at my reflection in the greasy microwave door. 27 years old, exhausted, broke, and technically homeless. Yet somewhere under the weight of betrayal, something small and stubborn pulsed. A memory of who I used to be. Back in college, before I dropped out to help cover bills, I'd freelanced as a graphic designer. Flyers for campus clubs, logos for small businesses. Once, even a wedding invitation set that earned me $500, more than a whole week at the cafe. I'd buried that part of me because life demanded survival, not dreams, but Marisol tilted her head, studying me. You still have your laptop, right? I nodded, then start again. Post your work. Offer commissions. People pay real money for design. Why not you? I blinked at her. Why not me? The question hung heavy, daring me to answer. When she finally went to sleep, I pulled my laptop from my duffel. The screen lit up, pale blue in the dark. The hum of the fridge became my soundtrack. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, rusty but itching to create. I scrolled through old files, half-finished posters, sketches of logos, designs I'd once been proud of. It was like opening a time capsule. Each file whispered that I had once been more than just the responsible daughter. I had been an artist. At 2 a.m., the cursor blinked on a blank canvas. My heart raced the way it used to when I was about to finish a big project. For the first time in years, the weight on my chest lifted. Just a little. I stared at the glowing laptop screen and felt the first spark of freedom. While my family slept soundly in the house I built for them, I was building something of my own. Nights blurred into each other in Marisol's cramped studio. The glow of my laptop was my only lamp. The hum of her mini fridge my constant companion. My body ached from cafe shifts, but my mind was awake, hungry. With each click of the mouse, each design draft I sent, I wasn't just freelancing, I was clawing back pieces of myself. At first, it felt impossible. Who would hire me? Who would trust someone working from a futon with Wi-Fi that cut out every few hours? But then a message. A local boutique wanted a flyer for their summer sale. We'll pay $120, the owner wrote. I nearly cried just seeing the number. I poured everything into it. The colors, the fonts, the way the fabric swirled in the mock-up. It was like painting on a digital canvas, and I remembered why I loved this. When I sent the final design, my hands shook. The reply came minutes later. This is perfect. Thank you, Whitney. You're a lifesaver, not lazy, not disappointment, not failure, a lifesaver. Those words replayed in my head louder than my father's silence ever had. Soon, one project became two. A cafe menu, a church bulletin, a logo for a dog grooming service. Nothing glamorous, but each deposit hit my PayPal account like a victory parade. I remember the night I crossed $600 earned. $600 actual dollars from my work alone. My stomach flipped and I laughed out loud, waking Marisol. You okay? She mumbled, hair sticking up. I made rent, on my own, from my own work. She smiled, rolled over, and muttered, Told you so. Meanwhile, on my phone screen, Ethan's life looked like a highlight reel. Videos of him at rooftop bars, champagne bottles spraying, captions like, "Work hard, play harder." But I knew the truth. He hadn't worked for any of it. He'd inherited what I had bled for. Still, I didn't envy him anymore, because while he was burning through money like paper, I was building something real, slow, steady, mine. One night, a client asked to video call. My palms sweated as I adjusted the cracked webcam. "Whitney, right?" The woman smiled. "We're so excited to work with you. We've heard you're reliable and fast. That's rare these days. Reliable, fast, valuable." Her words sank into me like warm sunlight. Respect, the kind my family never once gave me, was being handed to me by strangers who owed me nothing. After the call, I sat in silence, staring at my reflection on the dark screen. I wasn't worthless. I wasn't a ghost. I was a professional. Every late night, every drained coffee cup, every click of the keyboard reminded me of that. The world outside still saw me as the girl who'd been cast aside by her own parents. But in this little corner of Marisol's apartment, I was rewriting my story. For the first time, their rejection didn't break me. It built me. Halfway through my exile, life handed me the irony I'd been waiting for. It started with a phone call one afternoon while I was editing a logo. The caller ID made my stomach twist. Home. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "Whitney?" My mother's voice was unusually soft, almost sugary. "Hi, Mom." "Oh, just checking in. How are you holding up?" The words were foreign in her mouth. My parents didn't check in. They dictated, demanded, dismissed. "I'm fine," I said flatly. "Working," a pause. Then my dad's voice, gruffer, slid onto the line. "So, we heard you've been freelancing? Making some money?" My pulse quickened. They'd never cared about my work before. Why now? Yes, a little. Why? Another pause. Longer this time. The kind that makes silence ring louder than words. Then my mother slipped in the truth. "Well, it's just, your brother's been adjusting. The mortgage, the bills. You know how expensive things are. He's under a lot of pressure." I almost laughed right there. Pressure? From the house they handed him on a silver platter? From the bills I'd carried for years while he lounged? "So what are you asking?" I said, my voice colder now. "We thought, maybe if you could help out. Just for a while. You've always been good with money, Whitney." The bitterness rose in my throat like bile. They didn't call to check on me. They didn't care if I was eating ramen on a futon. They only called because Ethan, their golden son, couldn't keep up. I actually did laugh then. Sharp, hollow, too loud. "Help out? You kicked me out so he could have the house. You said I wasn't needed. And now you want me to bail him out?" There was silence. Then my dad snapped, "Watch your tone." But I was past caring. "No, Dad, you watch yours." Because the answer is no. I could almost hear my brother in the background, complaining, pacing, maybe realizing that the life he bragged about online came with bills attached. And me? For the first time, I didn't feel weak saying no. I felt powerful. "I hope you figure it out," I said quietly. "Really, I do. But I'm not your safety net anymore." "Whitney," my mom tried, her voice wobbling. But I pressed end. The screen went dark, my reflection staring back at me. And I smiled. Not because I forgave them, but because karma had finally RSVP'd. Humiliation came back around, but this time it wasn't mine. It started with a text from my cousin, Amanda. "Are you coming to Grandma's birthday dinner?" I almost typed no immediately. Family gatherings had always been minefields. Smiles that hid daggers, whispers that cut sharper than knives. But curiosity is dangerous, so instead of attending, I stayed in my apartment, phone in hand, waiting for the gossip to spill, and spill it did. By dessert time, my phone buzzed again. "You'll never believe this," Amanda wrote. The words felt electric. I pictured the dining room, the clinking of forks against plates, the chandelier casting golden light, the hum of overlapping conversations. I knew that room too well, the stage where I had been humiliated countless times. But tonight the performance had changed. "Ethan's in trouble," Amanda typed. "Credit cards maxed. Missed payments. People are talking." For a second I thought I'd misread. Ethan, the golden boy, the one who always had a new watch, a new car detail, a new story about his networking trips. My lips curved into a smile. Apparently, it started with an offhand joke from an uncle. "Hey, Ethan, heard the bank's calling more than your friends these days." Laughter followed, nervous but sharp, and then the whispers spread like wildfire across the table. I could almost hear my mother's voice. Tight. Defensive, a little too high-pitched. "Oh, people exaggerate. He's fine. Everything is under control." But I knew her tone when she lied. I'd heard it too many times growing up. Another text came. "Your dad looked furious, like he wanted to punch through the cake." The image made me laugh. A real belly laugh. The kind I hadn't let myself feel in months. Because for once, it wasn't me being dissected like a frog under the family spotlight. It was them. The whispers didn't stop. "He missed the mortgage payment? Didn't he get the house free? How do you mess that up?" Questions layered over questions, the same way they had once been asked about me. Why doesn't she have a better job? Why is she still single? Why can't she pull her weight? Only now the spotlight was squarely on Ethan. And it burned. I wasn't there to see his jaw tighten, but I could picture it. I wasn't there to see my parents' forced smiles, but I could feel the sweat on their palms. For so long, I had carried their disappointment on my shoulders. Tonight they carried their own, and me? I sat cross-legged on Marisol's futon, eating cold pizza, savoring every second of irony. Sometimes revenge doesn't look like a grand gesture. Sometimes it's as simple as silence, watching the same people who mocked you drown in the same shame they once poured on you. For once, I wasn't the one shrinking at a table. They were. Every empire crumbles. But watching my family's fall was more painful than satisfying. The call slowed. The text stopped. And then, one night, I drove past the house that had been the center of every wound. It was late, maybe 11 p.m. The streets were empty, the air crisp with that faint metallic chill of autumn. My headlights swept across the familiar driveway, cracked in the same places I remembered tripping as a kid. But the house looked wrong. The porch light, once always glowing like a beacon, was dark. The yard, which my father used to mow obsessively every Saturday, was overgrown, grass curling toward the driveway like unkempt hair. The windows stared back at me, black, hollow. This was the house my brother had inherited, the house my parents fought me over, the house that had been my prison and then my exile, and now it looked abandoned. I pulled over across the street, engine humming. My chest felt tight. I wanted to feel triumphant, to point and laugh, to say I told you so. But instead, something heavier settled in my stomach. Because no matter how much I hated what they'd done to me, this had once been home. The smell of my mom's cinnamon rolls, the sound of my dad's keys jingling when he came through the door, Ethan's laughter echoing down the hall, all ghosts now, swallowed by the silence. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white. Was this justice, or was it tragedy? I thought about the empire my parents had tried to build. The image of the perfect family, the golden son, the obedient daughter. They'd traded love for pride, compassion for appearances, and like every false empire, it had collapsed under its own weight. But here was the truth I hadn't expected. I didn't feel victorious. I felt free. The pain was still there, the scars of every cruel word, every dismissal. But alongside the pain was strength, a strength I had forged alone, in late nights and quiet victories, in choosing myself over their approval. I rolled down the window. The night air rushed in, carrying the faint smell of damp earth and fallen leaves. I let it fill my lungs, cleansing. For years I had wanted them to see me, to validate me, to finally admit they were wrong. But staring at that dark, crumbling house, I realized I didn't need them anymore. The closure wasn't in their apology. It was in my survival. I wiped my cheeks, surprised to find tears. They weren't bitter. They weren't angry. They were release. I drove away with tears in my eyes, but this time they weren't from loss. The call that once shattered me became the call that set me free. It came on a Thursday evening. I was working late, headphones on, finishing a logo draft for a new client. My phone buzzed. the screen lighting up with a number I knew by heart, but had trained myself to ignore. For a long second, I just stared at it. My parents' number. The last time they'd called, it was to humiliate me, reminding me I wasn't welcome, reminding me I wasn't good enough. That call had broken me. Tonight, I let it ring twice, then swiped to answer. Whitney. My mother's voice trembled, stripped of the sharpness it once carried. We need to talk. Behind her words, I caught the faint sound of my father clearing his throat. He was there, too. My chest tightened. What is it? My tone was flat, colder than I'd ever spoken to them before. There was a pause. Then my father spoke. The house. He exhaled, the weight of pride crumbling. We're close to losing it. Foreclosure, the bank's breathing down our necks. Silence. Only the low hum of my laptop fan filled the room. And you're telling me this because... My mother jumped in, her voice fragile. We thought maybe you could help, just something to get us through this month. You're doing well now, aren't you? The irony was sharp enough to taste. The same voices that had told me I wasn't welcome under their roof were now asking me to save it. I closed my eyes, the memory flashing. That night at the dinner table. You have 48 hours to leave. My father's words had sliced me in half. My mother had stayed silent. My brother had smirked. Now they needed me. Do you remember? I said slowly, my voice steady as glass. The night you told me to pack my things and get out. Do you remember telling me this house wasn't mine? No one answered. I remember. My throat burned, but my words stayed sharp. I remember every second. I remember hiding the eviction notice in my backpack so no one would see me cry. I remember working shifts while people whispered behind my back. I remember my brother standing in my room gloating while you stood behind him. My father finally broke. Whitney, that was... Don't, I cut him off. Don't call it a mistake. Don't pretend you didn't mean it. You made your choice, and now I'm making mine. The silence on the line was heavy, suffocating. I could almost feel their shame seeping through the receiver. I will not bail you out. Not after everything. Not after you made sure I had no one to lean on. You wanted Ethan to have it all? Then let him fix it. Let him be the hero you always thought he was. My mother's breath hitched. A quiet sob. My father muttered my name like a plea, but I didn't bend. For the first time in my life, I didn't shrink under their disappointment. I rose above it. This house may fall, I said softly, almost to myself. But I won't. You taught me to survive by kicking me out, and now, I'm stronger without you. The line stayed quiet. No arguments, no excuses, just silence. And this time I hung up, not in defeat, but in victory. Looking back, eviction was the best gift my family ever gave me. It didn't feel like a gift at the time. Back then it felt like betrayal wrapped in legal paper, signed by my father's hand. But standing in my new apartment, sunlight pouring through wide windows, the hum of a city alive outside, I understood. Because eviction forced me to build. The studio I'd once crashed in smelled of ramen and incense. My new place smelled of fresh paint and brewed coffee. A white desk sat by the window, my laptop glowing with new projects, invoices, and payments rolling in. My bank account finally had breathing room. I ran my hand across the countertop, smooth and cold. Every inch of this space was mine, paid for with nights I thought I couldn't make it, built on the ashes of rejection. Sometimes I'd pause while making breakfast, the hiss of eggs in the pan reminding me of the hiss of steaming milk at the cafe where I'd once been humiliated. Back then, people smirked when they heard my story. Now clients thanked me for my work. Strangers respected me more than my own family ever had, and it was enough. No, it was more than enough. I thought about my future dinners. Not at the old family table, where every seat had been a battlefield, but here, at my own table, set with dishes I'd chosen, chairs I'd pulled out for friends who loved me without conditions, maybe one day for a family of my own. The ghosts of their rejection still whispered sometimes, late at night. But I'd learned something important. Pain can be a prison, or it can be a passport. I chose the second. Would I ever forgive them? Maybe, maybe not. But forgiveness wasn't the point anymore. The point was freedom. I had lost their house. But in the process, I had gained something they could never take away. I may have lost my family's house, but I gained something greater: myself.